أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Yesterday we stated that any system that can adequately govern human being in the entirety of the human capacity has to be one that is in sync with the human nature. And we went some way towards explaining the central tenets of what constitutes human nature, in that we stated that human being is no different from the existence in which the human being abides. The existence in which we are is an evolutionary existence, and this is what we call the property of existence. In that sense, the human being is an evolutionary reality. What we meant by evolutionary reality is that the human being, like the earth in which he lives, like the cosmos in which he abides, realizes his self. At every stage of our existence, we want to realize ourselves, and that is the central feature of the human's existence. Beyond that, it's a multifaceted being in which we have this yearning to arrive at an objective we don't know what. We want to lead a meaningful life, a life which is purposeful, a life that brings a sense of fulfillment, a sense of completion. On top of that, we want to have a say in terms of the structure of our lives, in terms of the way in which we lead our lives. We want to exercise our own minds. Beyond that, we are very material. We want to have this world in a way that constitute increase in the purpose that we are to be, or that we are to attain. So it's a very complex thing. The only system, therefore, which can adequately cater for a human being's existence, and the one that would endure, and the one that would stand the test of time, is one that is totally in sync with this central tenet of humanity, which we call evolution, and through which we spoke of the human nature. And also, we pointed out that the human being, had it not been for religious biases, would acknowledge the truth beyond their own selves and their own ways of life, so long as certain tenets, central tenets, were present there. So for example, I just want to touch on that again, and then we continue. What we stated was that as human beings, without any biases, we would say people who are good to each other, who are becoming moral from within, who are caring, who are loving, who are mindful, who are duty conscious, who are pious, we will say they are all constituting the truth. No matter where they belong, in which capacity they are, of what persuasion they may be. On the other hand, people who do not have this sense of existence, of righteousness, of altruism, of care for the other, we would say that they are wrong no matter what system they might be abiding by. In that we stated that plurality of the truth is something that human nature would accept, provided those central tenets of growth and evolution are present. To give an example, the Israelis are now mounting a siege upon Palestine. We are told that 20-odd people were killed and a 6-year-old child was burned to death. It is here that person abiding by any system at the core of their humanity would declare such an act as being a wrongful act. On the other hand, if we were to hear the human rights activists promoting the human cause, no matter in what shape, form or color, so long as they were not transgressing on other rights, we would say this is commendable no matter what the background or personal persuasion of that individual may be. So one of the features of this nature we stated was that the human being is pluralistic. The only system that can endure the test of time and the demands of the evolving human being is one that is firmly in sync with the nature of the human being. What religions do, we stated, was that immediately they give, at least the Abrahamic faiths, they give this firm bond between create a firm bond between a human being and God. It's human, God-centric. Your life is a purposeful life. There is a spiritual need within yourself. That need asks you to be connected to something much loftier, so that your life may acquire some meaning. There may be some purpose to life. Life becomes wholesome and worthwhile. Otherwise, you are just living by the day. It is here that we see and begin to see the success of religions as opposed to any other social political system. Through this connection of the individual with God, very fundamentally, religion brings about the notion of morality. In this materialistic world of ours, we also talk about morals. We also talk about ethics, but we find that those morals are very empty. We find that they fluctuate. There is no permanence about it. But when we talk about connection of individual with God, in which the individual becomes purpose-driven and there is a loftier being, morality acquires a central part within human existence. And it is here that religion states to the individual that your purpose in life is to evolve to a greater pedestal of existence. There is no ceasing to your motion. Just as you grew physically and you formed within the womb of your mother, now you must grow and ascend morally and become a spiritual being. It appears, therefore, that religion, by supplying this tenet, that religion wins the human beings and has this great appeal, because all of us at the core of our being are all asking the same question. Why am I here? What is my purpose in existence? I have just awoken. There is a huge cosmos around me. What is my place here? And if the answers are not supplied, then life becomes meaningless. We start carving out a meaning, but that meaning is not sustained, and it breaks very, very quickly. Religion immediately connects the life of this world with God and states that your objective is the ultimate, and brings about this direction to that drive that is within us. We cannot deny that there is a drive within us to go forth, but we don't know where to go. Religion immediately directs us, says God is the ultimate, and that is where you are to reach. Hence the initial appeal within religion, because it satisfies me at the core of my being. The other thing religion states is, well, your purpose is attained through your own self-realization, whether in the capacity of an individual or the community. It adds further meaning that yes, fulfillment, sense of acquiring purpose comes from within. The outside becomes a mean for the inner completion to a great degree and to a great part. So for example, a person may lead a life very aimlessly, meaninglessly, try and find some form of purpose in acquiring billions, trillions, a kingdom, but still at the core of their being, there is still that question, isn't there more to it than this? How can I exist in isolation of a firm understanding of existence and where I am and what my place is in this world? What religion does is, it says, no, you are the central tenant together with God in the life of this world. You have to acquire your own self through this directedness towards God. This is where we begin to find that real sense of fulfillment, that I am growing with the passage of time at every breath. At the end of my life, my strength leaves me. My mental agility defies me. But at that point, still, I feel a sense of satisfaction because as a human being, I have grown towards my objective. I have grown in the realest sense, not through arbitrary terms. Madame Teresa, as great as she was, and may Allah bless her soul and elevate her ranks in paradise. And I know after this, if the fatwa of apostasy doesn't come upon me, and heresy doesn't come upon me, then we can withstand the rest of the 9 lectures. Just say Ameen to that. To Madame Teresa's dua, yes? Ameen. May Allah elevate her in her ranks. Ameen. Now here, this lady was then interviewed by the Observer, and she said, I have not found God. I have not felt God at all. I don't feel that deep sense of satisfaction. She is here, standing at a pedestal where we are sanctifying her, and by all means we should call her a saint. By all means, we should call her a saint because she was a saintly figure. But at the end of her life, she is in a position in which she admits to herself that I don't find God. I don't have that inner peace, inner satisfaction. Religion is designed to respond to these very fundamental questions that are there within us. God-directedness, God-centricity, and you as the purpose together with God in which you are evolving and becoming fulfilled. This is the tenet that makes religion so successful. In terms of the semantics of Islam, and this is our topic and topic at hand, we stated Islam immediately supplies those tenets in its very word. Islam, I submit. When I say, immediately I awaken to my own existence. I awaken to my own self that I am. Submit, I am directing myself to God who is the unlimited, absolute beauty, absolute glory, the peak of human aspiration. But not only that, it brings in a further tenet that when I say I submit, I am ready to let go. Because it is only through this submission, which is conscious and willful, that I can truly begin on the path of growth and evolution and self-realization. And that is the central facet of Islam, the larger Islam that we are going to talk about. Not the minor Islam, which is the one what me and you are following. The greater Islam. That is the central tenet. It is God-directed. Human being as a subject, and human being relenting and letting himself go. Now when Islam, the lowercase, well I'll call it the Islam that we are practicing, when it introduced when the greater Islam introduced itself in Mecca, what happened was that immediately it gave this broader context to satisfy that primary yearning that was deep within the hearts. You are not merely people on the face of this earth within a great cosmos. You are all inextricably connected. There is a reason for why you are here. The whole of this cosmos behaves in a particular manner. You have a purpose on the face of this earth, and you and the whole of this cosmos is interconnected. But more than all of that, Islam in its cosmology, in the broader framework, it states that the whole of this cosmos is subservient to you. And you are as if the center of existence. And the whole life, the whole universe, for as far as you are concerned, revolves around you. Immediately it began with answering these questions. That look, do you think you've been created in vain? Do you think there is no purpose? Do you think life is for this world? Do you think you've just come about here? Look at this, ponder about this, think about this, consider this. Look at the inadequacies that are there in your thought, clarify your thought. Immediately it began with this, by supplying a broader framework, a metaphysical framework that can then, through which a human being can locate himself properly. That I am on this earth. The cosmos means this. It immediately connected the world with the akhirah, individual with God. It gave a purpose to life, meaning to life. When this came, immediately people were satisfied. That yes, there has to be more to life than all of this. And as soon as it instilled that idea within their minds, it brought in other two tenets that we want to talk about, and then the general sort of outlook of Islam. It brought about other two tenets. That morality now is your natural state of existence. If this is your place within the cosmos, if the whole of this cosmos, as if it were, was prepared for you and you have centrality, and on top of that, you are directed to God and there is a lofty objective, then in that case, the only meaning of objective is for you to fully realize your own existence, and morality becomes an essential feature of your existence. You are supposed to be good people. You are supposed to be moral individuals, and then that will lead to the sense of spirituality that you are awaiting. It introduced that immediately. Then, it is so in sync with human existence. It introduces another central tenet that satisfies the inquiring human mind and the yearning human heart. It states that there is this world and then there is the hereafter. There is the body and there is the soul. There is worldliness, there is hereafterliness. There is form and there is meaning. Immediately it points at another tenet of existence and connects the world with the hereafter. So there are two things it did immediately after constructing that broad framework and telling the human being where you belong in all of this. Supplying the first central tenet, that you are connected with God. You are supposed to be directed there so that life can acquire purpose, can acquire meaning, so that you begin to realize yourself. Immediately then it talks about the practical side of life, that this life is connected with the other life. And in that you have to operate. Now yesterday we stated that if the religion were to have spirituality within it, but were to remain silent in terms of human life and how a life ought to be led in order to acquire that growth or that spirituality or objective then that religion will appear an incomplete religion. It would not fundamentally move people. And we see that with Christianity. It is silent as far as human life is concerned in the most meaningful way. Of course, it has general tenets and whatnot, but it's been forgotten by and large. Here, Islam sees it very differently. It states, no, your physical human life is the means for your acquisition of your objective. And therefore, the physical human life needs to be addressed and all importance needs to be given to it. And therefore, it creates this thing, the here and the hereafter. And look at the verses upon verses of the Quran. وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ دَارَ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Seek through what Allah has given you, the abode of the hereafter, but do not forget your share in this world. And do good as Allah has done good to you. And those righteous people, they speak out, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. And those righteous slaves of God, they speak out and they say, oh Lord, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter. This balance is being created. The Prophet is asked, well, in a nutshell, what is Islam all about? He said, execution of the rights of the people and the rights of God. Again, acquiring this balance. The balance of here and the balance of hereafter. And these, Islam, is the Islamic central tenet. That if you can get this right, then the human life can be organized in accordance with the human nature. It was through these broad tenets that Islam then addressed the needs of human beings as human beings, operating between these broad parameters. God, human. God is the objective, human is the subject of evolution towards God. As far as life is concerned, it is between two extremes, the world and the hereafter. And now this has to be addressed in a way that this world hereafter poles in the middle. The human life is supposed to yield towards that objective. Now we will discuss in the lectures that are to come how Allah connects every mundane aspect of human life with the hereafter and with Himself. But today let's talk about the generalities of the features of Islam. Together with supplying a rich theology about how God is, the nature of God, the nature of hereafter, the right of God, psychology, how human being's soul is, how evolution takes place, together with supplying us endless anecdotes and stories about morality through past nations and prophets that we are supposed to enact and learn from through the Quran. Quran also supplies us with central needs for human life. And look at the beautiful way in which Islam has understood human existence and has made it purposeful and driven it towards the attainment of the objective. People often criticize the fixed system for being so rigid. That rigidity is needed at times in order to bring about that uniformity, to bring about that discipline within an otherwise scattered human individual. That rigidity is needed in fiqh, in the legal system. Islam supplies that rigidity in parts. On the other hand, it connects the whole of this fixed system with itself immediately. And we are going to discuss this tomorrow, day after tomorrow. But even in the verses of Hajj, Zakat, Jihad, Saum, all of these are supposed to be ibadat, worships. But Allah knows very well within the Quran that they can follow a legal system per se for the sake of the world. So immediately He reminds them that Allah is watching over you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you might become God conscious through fasting. He didn't have to say this. So together with this rigidity, which is the form, He supplies the meaning hand in hand. On the other hand, look at the way in which between these two poles of the here and the hereafter, how it understands human life and how it supplies it. supplies its central tenets, and at times the very particular tenets. And that is why it had so much appeal, and it's endured, and why it is still growing maybe. When it talks about the human being, unlike other systems that place so much value upon the inner life and spirituality, Islam places equal weight on the bodily existence of the human being. As opposed to other systems which talk about the primacy of the individual, Islam talks about human in the context of the community and as an individual. As opposed to systems that talk about absoluteness of right and wrong, Islam talks about the absolutes and the relatives. As opposed to others that talk about universality of cultures, Islam admits to both universality and particularity of cultures. We see everything organized in a four-way relationship. Individual, God. 1. 2, individual, community. Absoluteness, relativity. Universality, particularity. Rigidity, flexibility. Absolute morality and subjective morality. In a word, it is nothing but absolute beauty in sync with the human nature in the way that human being is, and directing it through all these norms towards its growth. You can just see, before we go into a discussion as to what we mean by universality and particularity and relativity, you can see that the great prophet came to a place in which people had lost all sense of morality. Warring factions, divided along tribal lines, no sense of self-belief or confidence, steeped in steeped in superstitions, no sense of rights of others, no sense of altruism. Might was right, total anarchy. You can imagine, he must have had something with him that not only appealed to the people immediately, but within 23 years was able to unite them in their ranks through fraternity, instill sense of respect of other, bring about a moral state of existence in which altruism was far more preferred to individual growth, in which there is a balanced sense of life between the world and the hereafter. There is a sense of the right of the other. People have become moral, are becoming educated. He must have had something beyond just his own righteous example. There must have been something there. It is a gross mistake to say that the Muslims were appealed to the example of the Prophet, and the example of the Prophet means the personal piety of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or his spirituality, or his personal morality. No. We are human beings in the rightest sense. We have all the weaknesses and the frailties that a human being has. He must have had something with him that addressed the human being at the core of humanity, had a realistic appreciation of human nature, and started off addressing human needs, and then gave it evolution and growth. You know, people often say that revolutions occur when there are imbalances. It's true. Revolutions do occur when there are imbalances. When you have the majority of the subjects in a monarchy who are poor, and the elite are enjoying the fruits of their labor, of course there will be a revolution, and monarchy will be turned into a republic or a democracy or whatever else it comes to be. Yes, it is true. That is exactly what happens, because the first concern of a human individual is to fill their tummies, have a roof over their heads. Their menial needs have to be supplied with. But believe me, communism did that. It did not endure. Believe me, feudalism gave way to capitalism, but it does not yield high-spirited moral individuals. People who are ready to sacrifice, people who are ready to give, people who sleep at night without worrying about their capital for the next day, People who turn away from competition and say, "Oh Lord, whatever you have destined shall come to me." It does not yield, in the rightest sense, satisfactory human life, and does not bring about moral individuals. If it were to have brought about moral individuals, then surely me and you, the people of Muslim lands, will talk about the rights of minorities. Where do we talk about the rights of minorities? Although I'm going to delay this particular talk for later on in the fullest sense, but I'm going to point this out. This might be the harshest thing any Muslim hears. I went to Pakistan and I asked them about the Qadianis. They said they are underground and they're severely persecuted. And I said, why? They said, because they're not Muslims. I said, why are they not Muslims? And I asked a group of scholars, Sunnis and Shias, why are they not Muslims? Why don't you stand up for their rights? They said, because they don't believe in the finality of the prophethood. And I said, well, where does it state within the Quran or religious text that belief in the finality of the prophethood is a central tenet of being a Muslim? Where does it state it? Was it not just a political movement of Bhutto to win the election? To declare them as kafir and win all the votes? Where does it say? We can at most say they are wayward. They have strayed. Where does it say that the belief in this finality of prophethood is a central tenet of being called a Muslim? Show it to me theologically. If it is not there in the Quran or in the words of the Prophet himself or in the words of Amirul Mu'mineen, then where are we getting it from? I'm saying, if these social, economical systems that come through which human beings abide, if they come on the basis of economical and political inadequacies, and if that is to be equated with Islam, that because there were people who were poor and suffering and they came to Islam because of this particular facet of Islam, of economic rights, then I will say, how do you account for the creation of a moral being, a spiritual community, a community which is so glorious that people have never seen before in history of mankind within 23 years? This goes to prove that there must have been something with the Prophet that in the most realistic way appealed to the needs of a human community as the human community. And this is nothing else than this facet of Islam, that it has addressed within broad tenets the human God. Here, hereafter, within those parameters, it has addressed human life and directed it towards completion, towards making it a purposeful, spiritual, moral life in which morality is a central tenet of human existence. Now let's talk about the way in which it has understood things and the way it has modified it. On the one hand, it allows for this notion that yes, you are an ummah, you are bound together in the broadest culture that makes you one. And look at how appealing this was to the people. And look at how Islam is possibly, is the only religion that can govern mankind as mankind. It's the only system that can become a global system in accordance with the way in which Islam is. No other system can do this. Immediately it admits that you are one as an ummah. And it introduces those ummah cultures rotating around the Kaaba that makes you all one in equality with Allah. Take off your garments, your distinctions, no social status distinctions, no distinctions through origin and colors, no distinction through gender. Every distinction is torn away. You become one as an ummah. But I'm saying the appeal was not in that particularly. The appeal was in a greater notion of ummah that the Prophet created in Medina. Immediately he walks in the Medina with Surah Baqarah, say, we believe whatever has been revealed unto us and whatever has been revealed unto you. Imagine. This is exactly what me and you want today. If any system can tell me, religion that can tell me, that what you believe in is sacred and what the other believes in, provided those central tenets are there of humanity, then that is exactly what I want. And that is exactly what this world needs right now. That the Islam that we abide by actually gives us that confidence that you are right, they are right as well. Immediately construct a greater right and bind them all together. The Quran is so clear in this. Say to the people of the book, come together with us on that word that is shared equally between us and you, that we will not worship other than Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Can you not see that? That binding truth that binds them all. Immediately it admits to that. And yet, it allows for individual cultures to prevail. And that is the absolute human need. Today, this culture embraces us, the culture of the tent being here. But as soon as we go back into our homes, we will have very different particular cultures by which we will live. In different settings, there are different particular cultures. The whole of this thing that the Muslims debate, that cultures have no value, and we should throw cultures away, and it should just be religion in Islam, I will say you cannot talk greater nonsense than what you are talking. For the most part, as we will discuss, Islam is minimalistic. It gives principles to govern our life. In Islam, anything that adds to this growth, directedness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, becomes an equal facet of religion. An equal part of religion, no matter where it comes from. At the same time, it talks about this all-embracing, most universal culture. It admits to particular cultures. That is a realistic life for you. It talks about the individual, that yes, as an individual, you have rights. The effort that you put in, you deserve a reward for it. But at the same time, not at the exclusion of the community. It is your greater body, and seeks to modify these tensions between the individual and the community. You can imagine how appealing that must have been to those people. A religion that regulates in the broadest sense these relations. That yes, this is your individual right, but not at the expense of the community. Because the community makes you and breaks you, you make the community and you break the community. It's a mutual reciprocal relationship. As soon as a teaching like that comes, you can imagine how insightful that is and how appealing that would be to people who are abiding by it. They went to the Prophet, they said, Ya Rasulullah, why can't we do what we want? The Prophet said, imagine if you are on a ship. Everyone has your designated spot that you've paid for. If one of you were to take a chisel and a mallet, of course the Prophet said it in a different way, and starts knocking a hole in there, would the rest of you arrest him and stop him or not? Because his action constitutes a destruction of all. There are limitations to individual autonomy and freedom. But yet the community cannot exert such an influence upon the individual to rid the individual of his individuality. Otherwise, people like Hussein ibn Ali would not have arisen in front of the community. This is exactly what the Umayyads were saying. That he who claims to the seat of authority by any legitimate means is worthy of being followed. Hussein ibn Ali defied this cardinal law of whatever they had come out with. The individual has a right. God asks the individual to be responsible in the individual's capacity as well. Now you can imagine a religion that talks about these multifaceted relations would appeal. Economically, yes, earn as much as you want. You deserve it. But then there are restrictions. There is zakat. There is khums. The state needs to run. We have to create schools, build roads, protect our borders. Look at how realistic this religion is. Yes, there are rules in Islam. This is how you should go about doing things. But at the same time, it was broad enough to allow the initial Khilafah to borrow from the Roman example, from the Persian example, from foreign nations. They were highly innovative. They experimented, and Islam actually allowed for it. And evidence of this is that if that was illegitimate, we would have found text upon text upon text of the Imams and the Sahabas condemning those actions. But we don't. The initial Khilafah borrowed a great deal from the surrounding nations around Islam, in the way in which they administrated the state, in the way they understood a system of rights and wrongs. So yes, there are instructions, but there is also flexibility. In that way, when we look at Islam, we find a marvelous religion, a phenomenal religion that sets up a four-way, broad boundary and parameters and tenets. God, individual, here, hereafter, and within it addresses human life and makes human life a means for the human ascension towards the objective. And that is what made Islam so successful. But it did not spare anything. Even this thing that we have, the absoluteness of the understanding of the truth, Islam allows for both absoluteness and relativity. Immediately the Quran says, we have not sent any prophet to the people but with their own tongue. We have sent prophets to the people from amongst themselves, so that they can relate to those prophets the same experiences, the same background, the same history, the same norms, the same morals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, O Muhammad, not all of them can appear before you. Why do there not come forth a group of people from every tribe and learn from you and go back to their own respective tribes and warn them? This talks about relativity. It cannot be otherwise. That I have understood it in this way, that person has equally understood it, but in a slightly different way, in accordance with their own context, in accordance with their own demands. But yet the central tenet is there. And more than anything, it supplied us with the sense of right and wrong in a very different way. In the Quran, when you read, distinctions of right and wrong are not made along the lines of religions. We will discuss this thoroughly. They are not made along the lines of religions. They are made on the lines of friend of God and enemy of God. Where Islam does not shy away from declaring a Muslim the greatest enemy of God, and does not shy away from declaring a non-Muslim as a friend of God. You can imagine when a religion comes in this way, immediately it appeals adherence. And then the people find their lives are regulated through that religion. And in the way in which it regulates, it directs them towards their objective. And beyond that, it leaves it open enough for human experience, and human experience to add to the charm. It has broad understandings that your experiences, your intellect is as valid as anything else, provided it is in line with that objective. And that is the absolute human nature, to evolve and to grow and to self-realize. And it is wrong whenever it is in conflict with it. We want to propose going a step beyond. And that is that not only are the cultures to be placed in check by this fundamental, that if they yield growth, then they're right. If they do not yield growth, then they're not right. We want to propose that even the understanding of Islam that me and you have, to be termed as my understanding of Islam and not Islam per se. This Islam that I abide by is my interpretation of Islam. This fiqh that I live by is my interpretation of the law of Islam. Islam is another thing altogether that we have to understand. And during the course of these lectures, we want to understand, inshallah. At least get a clearer idea. If we can say that this Islam, this fiqh, these cultures, this theology, this sense of spirituality are my individual or my sectarian formalistic interpretation of Islam as Islam, then I can be bold enough without feeling a sense of guilt, without feeling that I'm erring, can put my hand on my chest and say that all of these interpretations can be challenged in line with that fundamental objective, attainment of the goal. I'll repeat these words again. The appeal that people found in Islam was that it gave them a sense of purpose, that it realistically addressed their lives, that it made their lives, as the Prophet said, the life of here is a garden and a farm for you to sow and reap within the hereafter. The life of this world and its connections and relations were made a means for the attainment of that lofty objective. It gave a worldview, a cosmology. This is where you are, this is where you belong, that is where you're headed. The rest of the cosmos is at your service. Do with it as you will. Imagine. Such appeal. But everything was God-centric. Everything is God-centric. And human is the absolute subject. That I, you, in our individual and collective capacity are arriving at God. And arrival at God means self-realization. And everything squarely has to be checked against that. Finished. Now, just as we say that cultures can be checked against this tenet, I just explained that people who make this distinction between culture and religion are talking, in my opinion, nonsense. You can't find what is a culture and what is religion. We will explain this in lectures that are to come, that the Prophet came in a given context, in a given culture, in a given convention. It wasn't devoid of culture or convention or norms. He came within a context with its cultures, its norms, its mores, and whatever else it had. I will say that is nonsense. But I will admit to this, that cultures, when they become counterproductive in terms of the attainment of the objective, then they have to be checked. Then in that case, we will take another step and we will say, what I've understood of Islam is an interpretation of Islam. What I've understood of culture, Islamic culture, is an interpretation of Islamic culture. What I've understood as morality and social norms and morals is an interpretation of Islamic social norms and morals. What I've understood of the legal system of Islam is an interpretation of the sacred law of Islam. The sacred law of Islam is squarely a law that is designed to increase self-realization and growth and attainment of the purpose. The morality of Islam is the morality of human being that is designed to increase the human being's humanity, growth, self-realization, attainment of objective. Theology is a theology that is designed to attain the central objective, which is godliness, making life purposeful. If the law, social norms, rigid laws of fiqh and so-called Islamic cultures are not attaining any of that, then in that case, across the board, in line with the central features of Islam, world, individual and the hereafter can be put into check and balance and can be discerned and can be looked at very, very critically. At the time of Hussein ibn Ali, we found a high state of ambiguity within the people, to the extent that Khawli, may his own internal inferno consume him unendingly, before God subjects him to the cosmic inferno. His wife told him, "Shall you kill the grandson of the Prophet for a meager sum?" He stated, there is a hadith that he who rises against a legitimately appointed Khalifa of the Muslim community should be put to death. And Hussein is no exception. Imagine. This is the state of ambiguity of right and wrong. The same Islam that has purged people on the basis of human nobility and humans' commitment to the truth that is beyond itself, has become this clouded with ambiguity. There are hadiths Muslim and Bukhari, and that is why we say to our Sunni brothers that when we talk, we will not spare Shiaism at all. Why should we spare your books? There are Sahih hadiths that pray behind every Imam, even if he is the most corrupt person on the face of this earth. You will have the thawab of Jama'ah and they will have the sin of being corrupt people. Imagine. Where can you find spirituality in corrupt people? There's another hadith. Fight with every individual, even if he's a tyrant, even if he is killing innocent people. You will have the thawab of jihad. He will be accountable for wrongful killing. Imagine. This is how clouded Islam had become. Hussein ibn Ali is putting Islam into check at that point. He is not going to abide by this Islam. For he says, upon this Islam, I bid my final farewell. Did he not say this? If Islam has become afflicted by the likes of Yazid, then I bid my final farewell to this Islam. This is not Islam at all. This is a monster in the face of Islam. Hussein ibn Ali was the first one to actually teach us this, the true state of Islam, beyond the formal word that creeps in as Islam. I'll tell you, the greatest calamity that happened within Islam was straight after the demise of the Prophet, when Khalid bin Walid massacred a community of people because they refused to pay their zakat to Abu Bakr, not acknowledging him as the first Khalifa. That was the greatest calamity ever. Whereas Muhammad Rasulullah gave them their autonomy at the battle of Badr. Battle of Badr. There were so many people who said to the Prophet, we will not join you for battle, for we do not believe in this battle. The Prophet said, as you wish. Look at this autonomy the Prophet is giving, in line with those central tenets of existence, that people should have their autonomy. Abu Bakr in his reign was committed the first greatest mistake in the name of Islam. It came to this level. I will salute all the Khalifas for their contributions and the good work that they have done. But at the same time, we will not spare even the greatest figure of Shia Islam if we find that they have committed error. And that is our principle by which we abide. Hussein ibn Ali saw this. He stood and he knew full well that at the core of these human beings, there is still a sense of discretion whereby they know right from wrong. And he based his movement upon that sense of right and wrong, so that his works would finally give them a nudge and awaken them. It was the most tragic story ever told. It had to be tragic. It had to have a 6-month-old baby. It had to have a little 3-year-old child. It had to have all these tenets for it to attach to the core of human emotions so that they awaken and go back and revert to that sense of righteousness. This is something we need to do now. In his preparations, in Rajab, departing from Medina, we have a narration from a person who had heard in Syria that the emperor or the Shah of the Bani Hashim was planning and preparing to leave from Medina to go to Mecca, for Medina was no longer a place of safety for him. He happened to be in Medina. He said, let me go and see how this great king prepares his departure. And in Kalimat Al-Mawsu'a ala Kalimat Hussein ibn Ali, it's narrated that he said, I went and at a distance I observed. For those of us who can't picture it, you know the Masjidul Nabi and Jannatul Baqi, the distance between the two, which is marbled now, that used to be initially the Mahalla Bani Hashim. So it is that region in which he comes. He states, I saw Hussein on a chair, sitting very gracefully. Around him circled youths that were at his service. Women were being placed within the canopies on the backs of the camels. At this point, there was a call, O sons of Hashim, O lovers of Al-Hussein, lower your gazes. As everyone lowered their gaze, I saw a princely youth appear, and with him was a woman. He went to the camel, knelt, and allowed the lady to ascend into the canopy. I asked who was he and who may she be. I was told this is Aliyun al-Akbar, and that was his mother. Again there was a cry, lower your gazes again, O sons of Hashim and devotees of Hussein. At that point I saw a face that was so majestic that I began to tremble from within myself. With him were two women, covered from head to toe. He came to a camel, knelt. The women placed their feet upon his thighs and ascended within the canopy. I asked who was he and who were they. I was told this was Abbas, the son of Ali, the one who has been designated as Qamar Bani Hashim, the moon of the Hashimites. And they were his sisters Zainab and Kulthum. If you can understand this, then you can understand the trauma that befell the heart of Zainab on the 11th of Muharram. We hear this from the Dhakirin and read within the Maqatil. At once when she came to her camel, which was unsaddled, she turned towards the Maqtal, battlefield, and she said, Wa Abbasa, were you not the one who allowed me to ascend within the canopy? Where are you today, O Abbas? Look at the state of your sister. Hussein is in Makkah. Finding Makkah unsafe, he prepares to leave. Abdullah ibn Umar comes to him. Muhammad ibn Hanafiya comes to him. And Ibn Abbas, all three come to him. Ibn Umar says to him, Hussein, do not advance towards Kufa, for these people will kill you. He said, I know very well they will kill me. But do know, O Abdullah, that if your father Umar was alive today, as he drew his sword and stood behind the Messenger of Allah in his defense, he would have stood behind me, supporting me in what I'm doing. Muhammad ibn Hanafiya said, Hussein, I cannot come with you. He said, go back to Medina and inform the people of Medina as to what is happening. Ibn Abbas comes to Hussein. Zainab stands behind one of the doors at Hussein's dwelling. He says, Oh Hussein, stay in Makkah or return to Medina. Imam says, Oh Ibn Abbas, these people will seek me, search me out and put me to death in Makkah and Medina. And I do not wish the sanctity of Medina and Makkah to be violated by the spilling of my blood. He said, Oh Hussein, then do know that the same fate awaits you on your route to Kufa. He states, I know this very well. Ibn Abbas says, Oh Hussein, if you have to go and if you must go, then why do you take your sisters with you? And Hussein states, Inna Allah yurid an yarahunna sabaya. Allah wishes to see them captives of the captives of Rome. He turns to him and says, Why do you take your children? Hussein states, Allah wishes to see them scattered as orphans within the plains of Karbala. When he talks of the sister of Zainab, his sister can no longer endure, fearing that Hussein may leave her behind. Impromptuously she speaks and preempts, O Ibn Abbas, you have not done any justice to me. How can Zainab exist without her, Hussein? Ala la'natullah al-qawmi al-zalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إلهي إنا نسألك بحق الحسين وجده وأبي وأمه وأخيه وتسعة المعصومين من ذريته وبنيه، اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ماتم حسين.